you hit on a couple of points that I think are worth diving into a little bit. And one of them is given the frenetic pace of advancement and evolution around data management, analytics technologies, including Gen AI, which you'd mentioned. You can't not mention it, right? I mean, it's pretty prevalent right now. But what do you see as the future of data product development, and how should industrial manufacturers prepare to leverage those advancements or sort of keep pace and sort through that landscape?
So I like to say that everything is probably rooted and grounded in data, right? So I would say the foundations are important. Again, data management, data governance, the data portfolio, et cetera. The benefit of where we are from a technological standpoint is the accessibility to how to interact with data is changing. So everything prompted, right? If you look at Microsoft Copilot, you look at the leading data management tooling that's available, whether it's a catalog, whether it's a observability tool to understand how data is moving from a source system to a target. All of those things now have new interfaces. They have knowledge graphs. They have a user experience that is much more friendly. And what that does is it onboards a whole new category of knowledge workers that previously were maybe working in a spreadsheet with macros, trying to write SQL and get data out of a database and then do something with it. These experiences now between RPA, having a generative AI interface like a chat GPT-like interface, having automated agents that are intervening within their business applications that they're already using, kind of like a embedded analytics type offering. Those things make it easier for them to get to the data and start interacting. So I would say, all of those things I mentioned require it to be rooted in the data that you want at hand. So there is publicly available data with many of the generative AI models. We see industrial manufacturing really leaning into how do I train or fine tune or provide context specific corpus of data for what I want to do. The early example I gave was, loading, a generative AI experience with very specific domain or departmental data, whether that be contracts, things that are very paper or manual oriented. So I think the preparation of a roadmap for industrial manufacturing where would a prompted interface elevate this department? And, what are the types of things that would help, whether you're a customer service agent, whether you're supply chain, finance, legal, what types of experiences can we seed with our own data instead of having all of these individuals, pouring through, many, many different data assets. I think that mining their data for insights and blending that data with third-party data is probably top of mind more so than ever. I think that more data is available on the open market in data marketplaces, and the use of data marketplaces is of great interest. I would say another one would be when you think of data as a product, it's very difficult for people to tangibly feel what that looks like. So I think the use of interfaces where you can interact with a life cycle of data and see that the data is going to come to you next Tuesday for validation and the stamp of approval that it's certified, and then it's going to move to the next individual. And that spatial orientation, often it's referred to as the data fabric, being able to interact across that entire ecosystem of data very easily. Those types of things I think are really impactful, but people also have to be ready to pull ahead. Data that's in the, or data projects that are in the future. If we compress their time and they're more efficient, they have faster access to data and more insights, the innovation or the initiatives they were going to work on in a year or two can be pulled into today. So I think organizations should prioritize not only their roadmaps by department, but an enterprise roadmap that says, if we enact generative AI, AI/ML, and better data use in these 6 departments, right? What do those 6 departments focus on next? Because they're going to have time. We're giving them back time. And so I think that's a critical part. And definitely the competitive pressures are real. I also strongly urge, again, technology simplification, because we are being more mindful of how we're aggregating data and using it. So sunsetting, taking a firm stance on sunsetting old legacy data sources, systems, software that's no longer used. There is a huge opportunity for a major cost takeout in that category for
Yeah.
industrial manufacturing.
Awesome. And now that we've talked a bit about some leading practices for data modernization and how companies need to think about leading with value, right? That whole notion of leading with value is so critical to get these things like on the path and on the right trajectory. But describe a few industrial manufacturing use cases that might bring this to life a bit.
My past experience as a chief data officer in a Fortune 500 automotive, I'm going to use an automotive example to start. I would say the two top use cases I think that deliver value there are one, predictive analytics for quality engineering and warranty. We have a wealth of data that's available to manufacturers, both from the plant floor, from a supply chain standpoint, as far as supplier quality, and then the actual assemblage of the finished product and its launch, and then any repairs or concerns that happen after the fact. So when you intersect a deep history of, let's say, repair order data, warranty data, sentiment from the customer if they are seeking support from a call center or from a service bay at a dealership. When you intersect all of that data and build a predictive model, it absolutely informs the way quality engineers can interact with an understanding of how common those problems are. It also allows you to do predictive models that help you do some scenario planning and looking into the future about very specific features of, in this case, a vehicle. I think that's probably one of the largest impact radiuses, right? So if you think about who would be the consumers in an automotive of that type of information, quality engineering, you've got product planning who are deciding what goes into the next iteration of that vehicle. It impacts manufacturing, supply chain. That get as many people, in that impact as possible, I think is what makes that a really interesting example.
Sure.
The second would be tying finance data to a larger audience. So that would be things like profitability of a product and understanding down to the very individual ingredients, what everything costs, the cost model, and then what that looks like over time from a finance perspective. Taking things like order to cash, record to report, on time in full for supply chain. Those are largely driven by finance data products out of a ERP system. So I think taking those and being opportunistic and saying, what are the ways we can take these data products that maybe we didn't have access to before and really, impact overall the life cycle of the product. Those are really significant. And then lastly, customer experience. So customers can interact with every product that they have. They're doing it digitally. It's more near real time. They may even be opting in for their data to be used by an organization that supplied them with the product, right, for research, for new product development. So I think that's a very interesting area, and I would encourage industrial manufacturing to consider, an R&D and incubation type approach, even, kind of in a startup or entrepreneurial mindset, where if we have access to safe data that is, anonymized, that has been synthesized with customer permission, imagine how we can impact the customer and client experience for products, what we design next, and obviously for competitive advantage.
Yeah. And there's so much going on, as companies look to better leverage data as a strategic asset. We could talk for days, and we do. But for now, we're going to draw this to a close. And Danielle, many thanks for sharing your perspectives and thoughts.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.